Hi everyone, this is your friend Dr. Obi. Welcome back to my YouTube channel. It's great to have you here, and thank you for always finding time to drop by. So in my last video, I did a legal analysis on the Comfort Emerson and Ibom Air saga. I presented the facts of the case as well as what the Nigerian law says concerning the powers of the airline company as well as the rights of the airline company, juxtaposing that with the criminal liability of Miss Comfort as well as her rights under the Nigerian law. I ended that video by reiterating the fact that though individuals, including passengers of airlines, do have human rights that are guaranteed under the law as well as international treaties, those rights, when they come in conflict with public security, talking about public safety, public health, and public morality, they are deemed to be subject to those three: public security, public safety, public health, and public morality. The goal in that video was to educate the public, particularly in light of the fact rather that Miss Comfort has since been arraigned before a magistrate court and remanded in Kirikiri prison. My goal in today's video is to present a similar analysis concerning that of K1 the Ultimate, a popular Nigerian Fuji musician. As we all know, the K1 incident indeed occurred before that of Comfort Emerson. And so it is important that just like Comfort is currently being brought, or has been brought rather, before a court of law and is undergoing criminal trial for her actions, a similar thing takes place as regards that of K1 the Ultimate. It is however important to put into perspective what indeed the criminal issues are, what are the liabilities that K1 has incurred, as well as the pilot and other members of the airline, the cabin crew, and other airport operatives. So that is my goal in today's video. So like I did in my last video, I think the right place to start from is to first establish what are the facts. So on the 5th of August 2025, at the Abuja Nnamdi Azikiwe International Airport, K1 the Ultimate was prevented from boarding Value Jet passenger plane on the ground that he hands over his flask, which was alleged to contain a prohibited substance. K1 refused to hand over his flask, claiming that it contained nothing but water, which he required to take every time, given that his doctor had prescribed that he does that from time to time. However, the airline crew refused to allow K1 to board the plane, even when the pilot intervened and tried to compel or try to calm K1 down and try to reason with him to let him know of what the rules are. K1 still refused, and it's even alleged that he did spill his content, the content of the flask on the pilot, which infuriated the pilot, and she asked that the door of the plane be closed. And in the videos that has gone viral all over the internet, K1 the Ultimate was later seen standing in front of the airplane, obstructing the airplane, even as the plane was taxiing slowly to take off. He was seen pushing back and standing in front of the aircraft, and it got to the point that even when the airplane took off, he was seen scampering off, and just by the whiskers, the wings of the plane, could have caught him and injured him severely. And it has become a national, discourse as to, of course, the debate is out there concerning his behavior, of how shameful the behavior is, and done an earlier video in that regard. However, like I said, the focus of today's video is a legal analysis of the entire issue. So having established the fact, I think it's a good point to then get into what the law says. What are the key legal issues? The first issue here is what the Nigerian Criminal Code Act, provides for. The Nigerian Criminal Code Act in section 4598 provides for the offense of obstructing an aircraft. That provision states, and I read, any person who, by any unlawful act, obstructs, causes an alteration to be made in the course of or in any way whatsoever hinders or impedes the movement of any aircraft which is in motion or in flight over any airdrome is guilty of a misdemeanor and is liable for imprisonment for 2 years. So, clearly, of course, from this provision, we can see that K1, the ultimate action on that day, standing in front of the plane and obstructing the plane from moving, constitutes a clear case of obstructing an aircraft, which is a clear violation of section 459A of the Criminal Code Act. And the point, therefore, is that K1 becomes liable under this provision and can be charged accordingly. So, standing in front of an aircraft that is taxiing, clearly satisfies the ingredients of this crime. And it's important to note that this crime does not need, to be established based on the intent of the perpetrator. The act needs only the unlawful. That means that the state only needs to prove that there's been a breach of security as well as airside rules, or that there's been an action on the part of an individual refusing lawful instructions. Absence of intent to endanger anyone is immaterial. That means that there is no need to prove the mens rea of this particular offense. So clearly, K1 the ultimate is liable under section 459A of the Criminal Code Act. Secondly, section 459B of the same Criminal Code Act provides for the offense of trespass or unlawful presence on the airside or within an airport area. It reads, any person who commits any nuisance or trespass in or upon any airdrome or in or upon any building or premises situated on any airdrome is guilty of a simple offense and is liable to imprisonment for 3 months or to a fine of 40 naira. Obviously, K1, the ultimate action on that day, considered an act of trespass within the premises of an airdrome. According to the airlines report, for over 40 minutes, K1 was involved in his altercation with the air crew, as well as his act of obstructing the plane and refusing, to allow the plane to take off. It is also, key to point out that there may also be, overlapping offenses that may equally arise under Nigeria Civil Aviation Act 2022, as well as Nigeria's Civil Aviation Regulations and under the ICAO regulations, which talks about the International Civil Aviation Organization's rules, which is, although an international treaty, was of course binding on Nigeria being a signatory to the treaty. Thirdly, is the offense of refusal of search and a breach of security protocols, as well as interference with security operation. The Nigerian Civil Aviation Act 2022, in particular section 42 to section 45, empowers the Nigerian Civil Aviation Authority, known as the NCAA, to mandate security screening in the airport. It is the reason why every passenger has to go through different layers of security screening, whether they are traveling domestically or they are traveling internationally. It is part of the powers granted the NCAA by the Nigerian Civil Aviation Act 2022. And when an individual or a passenger then refuses to submit himself or herself to such security screening, that would constitute an offense based on which a fine could be imposed. In this particular case, K1's action of refusing to hand over his flask and the content constitutes a case of, refusing security screening, because the requirement for that flask to be handed over is a security measure that was put in place because of the safety of K1 the Ultimate himself, as well as other passengers on the aircraft, as well as the air crew. And so his action of refusing to hand over the flask, constitutes a refusal to submit to security guidelines or security measures, which was designed for everyone's safety. In addition, his action of obstructing the plane, even when severally he was being, if you may, he was being pleaded with to leave the place. We could see in videos of how the airport officials as well as security operatives were trying to plead with him, and were trying to generally convince him, to just leave the tarmac and allow the plane to taxi and take off. But he refused all through. All of that constitutes interference with security measures within a high security facility, which an airport is. And of course, it becomes liable under Section 42 to Section 45 of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Act 2022. Also, there are reports of assaults on airline staff as well as airport staff. The airline, in its own version of the story, has claimed that at a point, A1 the Ultimate, did pour the contents of the flask on the pilot, and was equally aggressive towards the airline staff that were trying to plead with him to obey the rules. This will constitute an offense under the Nigerian Criminal Code Act. In particular, Section 252 and Section 253 of the Criminal Code Act provides for the offense of assault, whether the assault was on aircrew or was on AVSEC, which is talking about aviation security within the airport, as well as other security personnel. K1 the Ultimate is chargeable under Nigeria's general criminal law for the case of assault. However, that would need to be proved by the airline, by irrefutable evidence. It is also key to establish that even though all of K1's actions happen within Nigeria's domestic space, and of course, K1 the Ultimate is chargeable under Nigerian law, international law is also applicable to the situation, in that Nigeria is a signatory to relevant international treaties. In particular, like I said earlier, the ICAO convention is relevant. In particular, Annex 17 of the ICAO regulations, which talks about security against acts of unlawful interference within an airport facility. Other relevant treaties like the Tokyo Convention as well as the Montreal Instrument are also relevant, because all of these treaties also contains provisions that criminalize acts of violence and disruption which endangers aircraft as well as air personnel within the airport. All of these treaties are also applicable and can be enforced domestically, given that Nigeria is a signatory to this treaty. So, bottom line is the fact that based on the reported facts, like we have in all of the videos that have been trending online, and like I've tried to establish at the start of this video, and based on this preceding analysis of the law that I've just made, particularly Section 459A and Section 459B of the Criminal Code, as well as Section 42 to Section 45 of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Act 2022, as well as relevant international treaties, one can safely say that K1 the Ultimate is culpable under relevant law and can be accordingly charged to court. So now, having established K1 the Ultimate's potential liabilities, criminal liabilities, let us look at that of the airline and of course the pilot and other crew members. When this event happened, the Nigerian government, through the Minister of Aviation as well as the NCAA, immediately imposed a 6-month no-fly ban on K1 the Ultimate, and at the same time also suspended the license of the pilot as well as the air officer. Two officers of the airline were disciplined immediately. It is important to also establish what potential liabilities do these officers, the pilots, the first officer, as well as the airline itself, and other crew members, what potential liabilities do they have under relevant Nigerian law. The first is the issue of unsafe taxi and commencement without clearance. I mean, it's a viral video that is gone all over the world of how the plane took off aggressively, and K1 the ultimate had to duck his head, by which the wings of the plane missed his head by the whiskers. And nearly everyone who has seen that video were horrified as to what could have happened if he had not ducked his head. So that constitutes a case of unsafe taxiing by the pilot and commencement without clearance. So the NCA's official account states that the crew of the aircraft, the value jet aircraft, commenced departure procedures without mandatory pre-departure clearance, thereby creating a ground safety hazard, as seen in the fact that K1 the ultimate had to dock, so that the wings of the plane would not, hit him and all that. So immediately the pilot was suspended, as well as the first officer. Now, this gives rise to potential regulatory, or what you may refer to as administrative, breaches under the Civil Aviation Act 2022, as well as Nigeria's Civil Aviation Regulations. It is important to state very clearly that even though the pilots and the first officer has been suspended, most likely they are likely to incur administrative breaches and not criminal wrongdoing, like it is in the case of K1 the ultimate. For example, section 61 to section 70 of the Civil Aviation Act 2022 imposes an obligation on air operators as well as airmen to conduct operations safely and in accordance with regulations, directives, orders, and advisory circulars. So in that case, the pilot as well as the first officer were bound by these provisions, section 61 to 70 of the Civil Aviation Act 2022, to act safely in terms of their taxiing and takeoff of the plane, and also in accordance with relevant regulations. Clearly, by what was seen in viral videos, it would appear that the pilot did not act safely, even though we are here to get the pilot's accounts. Section 49 empowers the NCAA to prevent operations that could cause imminent danger to persons or property who are on the ground, and to, as a matter of fact, to detain airmen or even any aircraft which is seen as having violated this provision. The summary is that based on the provisions of the Nigerian Civil Aviation Act 2022, the pilot and the first officer are potentially liable for administrative breaches in terms of the safety of air operations on that day, even though they most likely will not be culpable for any kind of criminal wrongdoing. So let us then move forward to what is likely to be the charging formula, as well as talking about the charges that can be brought against K1 the ultimate, as well as the prosecutorial forum, talking about where it can be charged in terms of the jurisdiction where it can be brought for arraignment if and when that happens. So K1 the ultimate can be brought to court for potentially 3 charges, which is more like a summary of my preceding analysis. Number 1, which is count 1, obstructing an aircraft in line with which will be based on section 459A of the Criminal Code Act, which attracts a maximum of 2 years imprisonment. Count 2, trespass on an airdrome based on section 459B of the Criminal Code Act, which of course attracts a 3 months imprisonment and fine as may be relevant. Count 3, refusal or interference with security screenings, security measures, under the Civil Aviation Act 2022 and related Nigerian civil aviation regulations as may be applicable. When it comes to jurisdiction, some persons may argue that, well, all of these provisions, Section 459A and 459B of the Criminal Code Act, are not applicable, given that the Criminal Code Act only applies in the southern part of Nigeria, and Abuja is legally recognized as being a part of the northern region, and so potentially it is the penal code that will be applicable in Abuja, and so some may argue that K1 the Ultimate may not be chargeable under the Criminal Code Act. Of course, that may be a potential defense for K1 the Ultimate. However, it is important to state that even though the Criminal Code Act may not be applicable in Abuja, aviation matters are federal matters. They are federal matters. So, and when it comes to federal matters, the entire country becomes the country's, if you may, the country's territory, where federal laws are applicable across the entire country. So, having said that, aviation safety security offenses are federal in nature, and prosecutions commonly proceed in the federal high courts, with the NCAA and FAN and security police providing evidence, that would be useful in terms of prosecuting K1 the Ultimate. So it may not be a defense that the Criminal Code Act is not applicable in Abuja, given that aviation matters are federal offenses that can be applied in any part of the country. So just to provide a kind of balance, I would like to just talk about likely defenses or counter arguments that K1 the Ultimate, may want to raise in court. Number one, he may want to raise, or his lawyers may want to raise, the argument of lack of mens rea, or that he was acting under duress, or that there is a lack of procedural fairness. As earlier stated, when it comes to Section 459A and 459B, these offenses do not require a proof of the mens rea. Of course, what is the mens rea? When it comes to an offense, it is the law that for an offense to be chargeable, two elements must be satisfied, which is, of course, the physical element, which is referred to as the actus reus, that is the Latin term, and the mental element, which you may call the criminal mind, which is, of course, couched in the Latin maxim mens rea. But for this particular offense, what is required, to establish the crime or this offense is only the physical element, which is the actus reus. And it is clear in this case that from all viral videos, K1 the Ultimate could be seen obstructing an airplane, could be seen trespassing, within an airdrome facility, which, satisfies all the elements, required to charge him to court. Of course, we could also see from the videos that K1 the Ultimate was being pleaded with, and airport staff practically went over and above to try and convince him, to hand over the flask, which he could have done, and that would have ended the entire drama. So the defense of duress, most likely would not be available to K1 the Ultimate. And we could see that the matter, in fact, K1 the Ultimate would seem to, have gotten up very lightly after his actions. Some people have even referred to the punishment imposed on him as a slap on the wrist, in the sense that it was simply, handed a 6 months no fly ban, which some persons have referred to as very insignificant. So the defense of lack of procedural fairness, would not hold water for K1 the Ultimate. For the pilots, two defenses may come up. That is, firstly, that the pilot was provoked by an unruly passenger, and that our actions was based on operational necessity. It is key to also state that these two grounds also may most likely not hold as defenses for the pilot. While it is true that the pilot may have been provoked in action, but the point is that aviation rules, both domestically and internationally, imposes an overall burden on the airline as well as on the pilot to do all that is necessary to ensure aviation safety, even as an unruly passenger, is accordingly being dealt with, and brought to the book. So at the end of the day, the defense of provocation would not hold for the pilot. And as a matter of fact, there was, even though the pilot may claim that she had been cleared, to fly on that day, and of course there was a necessity to fly because maybe of time, of delay for other flights, that the same aircraft may need to still go for. The fact that a human life was involved. As a matter of fact, from viral videos, it will be seen that it wasn't just KWAM the Ultimate that was, still, very much close to the aircraft. Other airport officials, wearing their necessary IV vests were also seen around, and we could even see some of them even running immediately the plane took off. So it will be seen that operational safety was not in any way taken into consideration. That may have simply been an oversight by the pilot, but that will not excuse the pilot's action. So potential sanctions that could come to the two sides as I round off this video. For KWAM the Ultimate, potentially it could be sentenced to up to 2 years imprisonment, pursuant to section 459A of the Criminal Code Act. He may also be subject to additional fines and other penalties under the Civil Aviation Act 2022 for security violations, as well as assault charges if that is eventually proven. For the pilots, in addition to having a license suspended, the pilot may still face disciplinary proceedings, whether internally or externally, and of course there may be recommendations for mandatory training and whatever may be needed to help the pilot improve in terms of operations as a pilot. And of course, going forward, there may be need for the NCAA as well as the FAN to review security measures within and around the tarmac, the airport and aircraft, and perhaps ramp up those measures to ensure that there isn't a reoccurrence of something of this nature. So in conclusion, it is important to say that KWAM's criminal culpability is well established in this regard. The pilot administrative culpability is also clear. The pilot most likely would not face any criminal wrongdoing, given the analysis in today's video. However, for KWAM, it is as sure as daylight that KWAM the Ultimate faces potential criminal liability. Now, it is important to conclude that prosecuting KWAM the Ultimate for his action is key and important. It is central to the survival of Nigeria's aviation sector, particularly to send a clear-cut message to potential or future persons who may want to do the same thing in the future, and to also, if you may, strengthen confidence in the aviation sector, and also to assure Nigeria's international partners and international community that Nigeria indeed is on top of aviation issues within its domain. Allowing this matter to slide and allowing KWAM the Ultimate to go scot-free without being charged to court and accordingly punished would send the wrong signal and will be potentially damaging for the Nigerian aviation sector. So thank you very much for being here with me. This video has been quite lengthy a bit. I apologize for that. The whole idea is to be able to provide, if you may, quite comprehensive analysis, legal analysis of these issues, so that, of course, for those who are my subscribers, one or two things can be learned. Thank you very much once again. If you like my analysis in this channel, please, I encourage you to subscribe to the channel, like this video, please share, and I will see you in my next video.